Thank you for listening to Shulchanaruchharav.com.
Counting Jews. We are all familiar with the minhag that when you're in shul and you're counting the people for a minyan, that we avoid saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We avoid counting with numbers, avoid counting people. What is the reason behind this? The source, the severity? Is this biblical, rabbinical, a mere custom? In which cases does it apply? This is what we will discuss in today's section of this subject, part 1, and in part 2 in Meretz Hashem, we will go into the permitted ways of how to circumvent the problem and to count in permissible methods. So the idea of census taking is sporadically found throughout the Tanakh, starting with Parshas Kisisa, where we were asked to give a half shekel coin in relation to the census that was taken. And so too we find in Bamidbar that we were once again counted. And so too in Nevi'im we find that the Jewish people were counted, as is brought in Shmuel 1 regarding Shaul HaMelech, that he commanded that the nation be counted. As well in Shmuel 2:24 we find that David commanded the Jewish people to be counted. And hidden within these words of scripture that describe the census taking is a hint towards the subject at hand: how may one count Jews? The Gemara in Maseches Brachos 62b writes of a very interesting episode that took place with David HaMelech, in which David, as recorded in Shmuel Aleph, stated, Im Hashem esischa, if Hashem has persuaded you or convinced you to sin. And the Gemara says, because David called Hashem a mesis, one who persuades others to sin, he was punished that he would forget something that even the children in school know. What did Hashem make David HaMelech forget? That David HaMelech took a census, he counted the Jewish people, and he forgot Parshas Kisisa, that you may only do so through the Machatzis HaShekel, and you may not directly count the Jews. Likewise, we find in the Gemara in Yuma 22b, that when Shaul HaMelech asked to take a census of the Jewish people, he did so through sheep, meaning each Jew gave a sheep over to the census taker and then counted the sheep instead of the people. And this serves as the source, states the Gemara, that Asur limanos es Yisrael, it is forbidden to count the Jewish people. And based on the above two Gemaras, it is ruled lehalacha in the Rishonim and the Paiskim that it is forbidden to count Jews. So writes the Rambam in Ilchas Tmidin 4:4, the Magen Avram 156:2, and the Alter Rebbe in 156 halacha 15, as well as many other Rishonim and Achreinim. Now, is this prohibition to count Yidden of biblical or rabbinical status? So the Gemara in Yuma goes on to bring Rabbi Eliezer, who holds that one who counts the Jewish people transgresses a negative command, while Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak says he transgresses 2 negative commands. Nonetheless, their statement is not recorded in the Rishonim or the Paiskim, and indeed we find many Paiskim who hold that in truth the prohibition of counting Jews is only medivrei Kabbalah, it's only rabbinical, and a proof for that is that none of the Meinei HaMitzvahs, none of those who count the mitzvahs in the Torah, count counting Jews as a prohibition. Nonetheless, this is not agreed to by all. There are Paiskim who hold that indeed counting the Jewish people is a biblical prohibition, as discussed in length in the sources in the article. What is the reason behind the prohibition? Why does the Torah or the Chachamim prohibit counting the Jewish people? So Rashi in Parshas Kisisa already gives us a revelation of the issue involved, and he says that anything that you count is subject to ayin hara. And this follows a Gemara in Bava Metzia that blessing is only found in that which is hidden from the eye. Rabbeinu Bachai in Parshas Kisisa explains that when you count the Jewish people, or you count any amount of Jews individually, since you're turning every individual into a unique number, it arouses divine scrutiny on that individual, and Hashem begins judging and scrutinizing their standing as they are alone. However, when you don't count any Jews, when Jews are left uncounted, we are viewed as a community, and the merits of all of us together join to protect ourselves, as opposed to each individual being judged independently. Now, does this prohibition only apply when you're counting for census-taking purposes, such as I want to know how many Jews are in the room, or how many Jews are in a country? Or does it apply even when counting for an external purpose, such as if I'm making a raffle? I have here a nice delicious piece of cake that I want to raffle off to my kids, and I'm going to pick a number, and I'm going to count each kid, and when the kid hits the number I picked, then that kid will receive the cake. My intent here is not to count how many kids there are, but simply for a raffle. But nonetheless, in the process, I'm counting them. So rules the Magen Avraham and the Shulchan Aruch and the Alter Rebbe that the prohibition applies in all cases, whether you're doing it for census taking of your country, community, shul, or minyan, or you're doing so for the sake of a raffle. This is proven from the Gemara in Yuma, in which every day the raffle took place in the Beis Hamikdash to choose which kohen would get which job of Aveda, and they did not count them per head. Rather, they counted them in one of the permitted ways that we will learn in part 2. Likewise, from this Gemara in Yuma, it's also learned, as points out the Magen Avraham and the Alter Rebbe, also recorded in Sefer HaPardes of Rashi, that it's forbidden to count Jews even for the sake of a mitzvah, such as to see how many people in the room if there's a minyan. So to summarize, it is a complete prohibition to count Jews, whether you're counting a community or you're counting a few individuals. It's forbidden whether you're doing it for census-taking purposes or for some external purpose, and it's forbidden even for the sake of a mitzvah. How then are you able to count if you need to count? I want to know if there's 10 people in the room for a minyan. There's no way to do it? So Mirz Hashem, in part 2, we will discuss all the permitted ways that circumvent the prohibition, which means that the above prohibition is limited to specific forms of counting, while certain indirect forms of counting are not legally defined as counting and are therefore permitted, as we will in Mirz Hashem discuss in part 2. In part 3, Mirz Hashem, we will go into the weighted question regarding if you're allowed to take part in census taking of your country, state, or county, and what issues may be involved based on what we discussed above.
Thank you for listening to Shulchanaruchharav.com. Our free services of making Torah knowledge available to the public depends on donors like you. Please help us continue our work through making even a small contribution at Shulchanaruchharav.com under the Daily Halacha Dedication section or in the subscription page. Also, check out our online